I'm sure everyone watching is aware of some off-color remarks made by Los Angeles City Council member Nuri Martinez in regards to Council member Mike Bonnet's adopted son, who happens to be black.
We coming for you, nigga.
The remarks were leaked from what Martinez and her colleagues thought was a private strategy session. This is from the LA Times. The strategy session was supposed to be a discreet backroom conversation, but as it got underway in a private room at the headquarters of the LA County Federation of Labor, someone was recording it. Over the next hour, a device captured the Democratic politicians and the labor leader, all Latino, speaking contemptuously about those they regarded as rivals or impediments. The recordings, included racist, bigoted, and crude remarks about Black, Jewish, Armenian, Indigenous, and gay people. Now, since the leak, many of the parties that were present in the meeting have stepped down amid a firestorm of anger over the racially charged language that was used. And to me, there is a moralizing criticism of everyone that was present. This is what racial coalition politics looks and sounds like. What do you think is going on with the Los Angeles Black Caucus, Jewish synagogue? They were all trying to redistrict to hold on to a sliver of political power. Why was the audio that was a year old leaked? The ballots went out for the November election. It was a play to remove people to get power in a city where the political dynamics are changing, gentrifying class. The meeting in question is about maintaining seats on the council to maintain political power. Some seats were lost to some candidates that represent the gentrifying class, and they're backed by the DSA. These new council members didn't win the Latin vote in their districts. And there is a large Latino constituency that is not on board with slogans like defund the police or even abolitionists. The Los Angeles police force, for example, is 70% of color. The defund slogan, especially in the Latin and Black community, sounds like an end good public sector union jobs. So when you hear Nuri Martinez make a comment about someone, Gascon, being with the Blacks, it was meant as a political affiliation. They were meeting to move their district to the south and to the west as the northeast was gentrifying, and they could potentially lose seats to younger, more progressive candidates that represent the interests of the incoming gentrifying class. There's also a player in all of this that is not often discussed, and that player is USC, University of Southern California. They want to take over the entire East Side. They want to compete with the Ivy League, but due to astronomical costs of housing in Southern California, people don't want to work there. So how do you fix that? Build your own housing in a transitional neighborhood. This is the real gentrification story Larry Fishburne didn't tell you in Boys in the Hood. Every of the pie and all these racial coalitions were having secret backdoor meetings about how to maintain power. What do you guys on screen think this is all about?
I think that you made some really good points about how this is how ethnic patronage politics works out in a municipality where they're competing forces for power, and that the actual ruling power central focal point, which is University of Southern California, is trying to play one community against each other. And what happens in those situations is that people get their feelings hurt.
The way I see it is that this comes out of having ethnicity-based machine politics, where you appeal to these ideas of ethnic or racial solidarity as the basis of your entire political program. It's not that we're going to change the system, it's that we're going to make sure that the benefits go to people who look like us, who belong to our team. It's very much the conversion of racial or ethnic identity into team politics. But when you look within each of these groups and the way that they're politically mobilized, it's basically the Democratic Party in a microcosm. You have elites from within the group that are deciding policy, winning elections, running elections, and then making deals with their counterparts from other groups, as well as big outside forces like USC or even the state and federal government. While below that, you have a lot of people who, at best, just get some kind of passive benefit from having a city that is sort of run by people who look like them, which that can be important, but it's not the broad-based empowerment or the redistribution of wealth to those who need it.
These are all people trying to play, power politics. I think the sad part about the whole story has been kind of the spectacle and everyone coming out, saying their sad story about how affected they were about the comments that were made, which, if you really listen to the comments, are kind of more of an indictment on Mike Bonin than they are about the kid. I mean, I've definitely heard worse. I posted the Eddie Murphy skit he did in the 80s when Jesse Jackson got caught calling, was it Brooklyn, Pascal? Jesse Jackson called
Hymietown, New York City.
You call all of New York City Hymietown?
Yep.
And I thought it was just Brooklyn. He called all of New York? Jesus Christ. Was he caught on tape saying that? I don't remember.
Wait, did he say Hymietown or Greater Hymietown? Because it's two different maps.
It's almost like people forgot all about that. Like, I've never seen anyone ever bring up the Jesse Jackson Hymietown thing. Oh,
but one other thing that I wanted to pick up on from what you were saying, when you talk about the interests of the gentrifying class, one of the particular characteristics of gentrifiers is they don't have deep roots in the city. They don't belong to one of the teams usually. Often they're people from outside who are moving in for job opportunities, people moving back from the suburbs, that kind of thing. So they're outside of the system. They don't really understand its logic, and they haven't yet absorbed the material side of civic governance, because they do very well in the market. Like, so often you have gentrifiers be either libertarians or left liberals, some socialists, and they have political positions that have been formed intellectually through their educational experience, which may or may not correspond at all to the civic reality of the place that they're living in. So often the people who get elected on these gentrification waves have no idea what they're doing. They can't actually run the city because they haven't been preparing for it. Instead, they've arrived into politics through college debate clubs and the other kind of campus mobilization that produces protest movements in university campuses that then carry over when people graduate.
This I'm putting this comment on the screen because this kind of encapsulates everything that literally just happened in LA. Literally.
That's exactly what happens.
That's exactly what happened. Like, I don't know why you did. That's what goes on literally in every city. This is what we're doing.
That's what got us here.
That's literally what happened.
Like, that's why black politics doesn't work. Is it because it's a brokerage politics where you have people who are telling you that you're black and you think like they think like you when they're looking out for their best interests. It's a con game.
So to put it back to the LA context, there was a black council member that actually, I think the USC district was part of his district. And he got caught up in a scandal literally a year ago today where he had paid, it was $100,000 to get his kid a degree and a professorship at USC. And the USC dean had to step down at the time.
You can still do that?
Yeah. I mean, why do you think it doesn't happen? It's a side door. Only so many people have money to buy a building, right? USC also gave Karen Bass an honorary master's.
Ooh.
Yeah, but like honorary whatevers, you can just hand them out like candies. A professorship, that's real shit.
Yeah, but the honorary masters, also had a lot to do with their build out of a new medical corridor as well. It's an interesting story, and we'll see how people want to cover it. But the racial aspect is an emotional aspect that people like to click on that, because we can all comment on that without having to know anything about the situation in Los Angeles. Moving on. Pascal, you wanted to talk about Haiti. Actually, before we move on, Toussaint, do you have anything to say on this? Where's Toussaint? Is she in the bathroom?
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi.
Okay, here we are. Since it's so central to the discussion, I just want to read the comment that we're responding to. Black people need to start fighting for its own interests before any kind of solidarity. So, yeah, that's what got us into this situation in California.
That's what we said.
Yes.
Well,
But
and the
for
question
the
is,
audio listeners,
the
they don't know the comment.
Thank you.
and I mean, a couple of interesting things just out of that comment. One, Black people singular. It's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That may
Caught
just be.
too.
And the other is if you're, is it like 12% of California population is Black?
It's a pretty small number. In LA, it's dwindling too. It's getting much smaller. The Black population.
So is the proposal that you turn yourself into an elite minority and all the country clubs now belong to us, and we're going to be extracting from everybody else? If so, I mean, good luck, right? Like that's going to be hard. That's a tough road to plow. But if it's a matter of, well, we have to look after our own interests, then how much will it take, right? Like, can like the whites, the Jews, and the Armenians pitch in and like cover it, right? How many jobs, how much symbolism, right? Like, name your price. Because if we're talking pure interests, that's what it comes down to. You're just haggling over price.
Who are the Black people that you're talking about? The Black political class, the Congressional Black Caucus.
I think there's just you. I mean, Pascal, you know how this works, right?
It's the conflation of the entire group into one single-headed body, and of course, it ends up empowering the Black political class, which negotiates a price and then keeps it all for itself.
I mean, the problem that people really are failing to understand here is that Black politics in America is not designed to represent the interests of poor and working class Black people. It is a brokerage politics of elites, just like any other politics in America.
Absolutely.
The problem is that the charade of racial kinship is what allows Black people to believe that there's somebody actually out there defending their interests.
Like, the greatest possible example is, of course, Obama, who takes full advantage of the symbolic benefit of solidarity politics, as well as tapping into the power of white liberal, feel-good multiculturalism or diversity politics. But really, what does he do? He saves the banks and turns what's supposed to be universal health care into a bonanza for insurers.
He was supposed to save the Black banks, Google.
You're right. You're right. There was like the missing part of the memo where if you got bailout money, you were supposed to sign everything over to the Black Israelites.
Someone asked me to define a term for them. Brokerage politics. What I mean by brokerage politics is that Black politics is a kind of brokerage politics. It's a captured politics. You have
racial coalition politics. It's not just Black people. It's racial coalition.
Right. That's a very good point. Racial coalition politics, particularly. But when I mean brokerage, why is there someone like an Al Sharpton acting like a broker for the interests of Black people when he's not? No one chooses him. No one picks him. He represents no one, yet he has all of this capacity to negotiate and broker interests for people that no one chose to represent. What is the history that allows this kind of tradition to exist in Black politics? Why is there a Black leader when there's no Hispanic leader? Who's the Jewish leader? Who's the Italian American leader? Why has there always been a need to have a Black leader for over 100 years?
I mean, there's always a leader, right? That's what those people were all meeting about. That was part of what I actually found out, was everyone was meeting around the same time when it came to the redistricting. There was the Jewish community that was trying to redistrict to have an entire voting block.
I totally agree with you, and I think I agree that I also agree with you that these phenomenon exist in lesser capacities in different ethnic groups as well. But what has happened is that they've been expended over time, over 100 years history, and perfected in Black spaces and replicated in other communities. And no one ever challenged, why do we have these things?
The importance, I think that the importance of the Black leader largely has to do with the fact that whites want to have somebody to sign an armistice with, right?
Yes.
And
indigenous people too.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And honestly, what a headache it was with the indigenous people, because there's like so many of them. Did you know that there's more than one kind of Indian?
That's why we only deal with Jeff. The guy we make deals with.
For all of them.
For all of them.
Tribes.
That's what he tells us, right? And we believe him because, you know. Here's
a question I'd like to ask. Mm-hmm. If you realize that you're part of you're part in a country where 14% of the population is Black, at some point, you're going to have to interface with people who don't look like you to get your demands. At some point, either it's going to be the ruling class or it's going to be at the grassroots level. Doesn't it make sense to get your ducks in a row at the grassroots level so that you have the muscle numerically so that when you get to the ruling class, you have more efficacy and your capacity to get your demands met? Or are you saying that you should basically go it alone when eventually you're going to have to try to confront someone to get what you want anyway? And when you get there, you have nobody but yourself to negotiate with them. Is that what you're arguing is the strategy?
I think that's what people think they're doing. They think they're getting their ethnic ducks in a row or racial ducks in a row before dealing with some outside community. But we've been resistant to getting in a row, haven't we? Apparently Jay-Z and Beyonce don't have my best interest at heart.
But she did the whole Black Power thing at the Super Bowl.
I know.
No?
Well, that's one reason why having a single leader is so attractive to the state apparatus is that it compensates for deficiencies in your own system of administration rather than trying to reach out to the individuals within the group and bring them on board with like a better deal for everyone. You just have one person that you need to convince, and then it becomes their problem to get, their people to do what you want.
Also, another thing I'd like to point out is that some of these council members actually do come from activism. They do come from poor and working class backgrounds. Nuri Martinez actually does come from the lower class. Gil Cedillo actually was a communist when he was young, made his bones in the labor movement as an organizer, actually passed the first DREAM Act And he was writing that legislation when Bush was in office as president and when Schwarzenegger was governor of California, and he was on the state assembly. He also got the driver's license bill that allowed undocumented people to get driver's licenses. So, you do have to make some sort of return on investment when these people bring votes. There's a reason why they had these seats for so long. And we forget also in the context, and I haven't read anything that has mentioned this, there was some really horrible legislation in the 90s, and I don't even think there was a Latin member on the city council not that long ago. So again, these are people trying, and I'm not saying that justifies everything, just putting it into some sort of perspective. These are people literally trying, everyone is trying to hold on to some sort of power. And everyone has come up with racial coalition politics, because that's how, as Kuba was saying, the Democratic machine and even the GOP machine works. Can you deliver votes of a constituency? That's what people care about.
And the litmus test for the left, electorally speaking, if it's going to be electorally relevant, then you have to deliver votes on an ideological basis without appeals to a particular racial or ethnic identities, at least at the level of interface with the system. You can embed things like, I don't want to say anti-racism, but police reform or housing issues, things that disproportionately affect people of color within your program. But when you get to negotiating, it can't be like, well, houses for Black people, trailers for Latinos, and then everybody else gets a tent.
It's another thing that also is getting downplayed too, which was a big part of these conversations. There were many. That wasn't just the one that was recorded. Was the fact that... Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe on your way out. You can catch the live stream of This Is Revolution every Tuesday through Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and Saturday 9 a.m. Pacific Time. This is Revolution.